Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Hey sports fans, are you ready for an exhilarating gaming experience? Introducing VIPclub.lv, your ultimate online sportsbook and casino. VIPclub.lv offers a vast selection of sports, from football and basketball to tennis and baseball. Bet on your favorite teams and enjoy the thrill of the game. But that's not all. Our state-of-the-art online casino offers a dazzling array of games, including slots, blackjack, roulette, and live dealer tables. Win big with their fantastic promotions, rewards, and exclusive offers. Join VIPclub.lv today and get a generous 200% match welcome bonus to start your winning streak. And make sure to use code ECSI at sign-up. Bet it, win it, and cash it at VIPclub.lv. Visit VIPclub.lv now and play responsibly. VIPclub.lv, your sportsbook and casino extravaganza. Must be 21 or older to play. Please gamble responsibly. Visit gambleware.org for help.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is the Dawg and Desperado's Fantasy Football Show. I'm going episode 7. Sean's probably going to correct me. It's 6 or 8, so I'm usually off one. So September 1st, we turned the calendar. Everyone has made it. The dog days of summer are over. Week number 1 in college football with some games last night and games throughout the weekend. But myself and Sean are here to get you ready for all your drafts today. Shout out to all the guys in Vegas and in New York City in the NFFC. Best of luck this weekend. And next weekend, again, live in Vegas. I know Sean will be in Vegas getting ready for some of those drafts as well. He has not 1, not 2, but 3 drafts tonight. For myself, night off, I'll be at the BC game tomorrow with Anthony Pepe and a few others. And then Sunday, 2 primetime events. And Monday, my last OC event. And Thursday, the Classic, about 6 hours before the kickoff of Kansas City and Detroit. The Classic is 14 teams, my favorite of all favorites. You come out feeling like you had a root canal with no Novocaine. Shout out to the VIP Club, our new sponsor. At the checkout window, always use the ECSI code and tell them JD sent you, and they'll take good care of you. But without further ado, let's bring in the co-star of this show, the one and only Mr. Hall of Fame himself, Shawn Child.
Jeff, it is showtime in the fantasy football market. Place your bets.
It definitely is. And yesterday, some breaking news as we talk backstage. We've been trying to stay consistent and do our Friday shows. So a week has passed. The final cuts. Jonathan Taylor, no trade on the PUP. Will miss the first 4 weeks. We already know Alvin Kamara will miss the first 3 weeks. Last night, breaking news. Cooper Kupp has a setback. And as you said backstage, you have now pulled him from his rankings, dropped him down a few. But let's go from last week to this week. Cuts, news with Taylor, Kupp, yada, yada, yada. How'd you adjust some of these injuries and news to your rankings?
Yeah, there was just a lot of stuff, a lot of movement, especially with the players on Monday and Tuesday, shifting teams. And, a lot of them aren't major factors. I guess the Jeff Wilson, being out for 4 games is kind of a surprise, but A-Chain probably be back a little bit quicker. So I had to today update that backfield and move Mostert to, the wide running back 1 and, change it around. Kupp, I dropped him. I just, a little setback, could be a little limited out of the gate. I don't really like what the Rams are going their direction anyway. So he actually is the 11th receiver right now on the projections. I mean, still 100 and something catches, 1,100 and something yards, 8 touchdowns, a nice player, but when you got those little injuries coming to the year, it's hard enough winning with healthy players. Never mind starting with players that are already hurt, especially in football where it's more of a sprint. So I think that was only two. I guess maybe was one other minor change. New England put Thornton on the out for 4 games or something. So it kind of, none of those secondary behind Smith-Schuster or wide receivers kind of stand out for me. I like the Bote guy that they come in the best, but we'll see what happens. So, it's, just kind of messy there.
No, you brought up a good point. It's hard enough to draft, and then health and luck is in this marathon, 17 weeks of it. You got to get to the big dance and the playoffs to get that last 3 push and the rush there. Drafting already hurt players. Let me just start with your thought process. Kamara and Taylor. Now, we know Kamara is a 3-game suspension. We know Taylor is on the PUP list for the first 4 weeks. As you're drafting and have drafted and getting ready for this weekend and next weekend, there are some discounts. The Kamara one really isn't that much of a discount. I'm looking at my draft on Wednesday night here. I'm trying to find Kamara here for you. Come on, eyes, work here. Kamara went 5.11, so you're not getting a big discount knowing he's going to miss 3 weeks and obviously his bye week. And Taylor, can you wrap your head around the fact that you can grab these two at a discount and then be built after the first month and, get that push and then hopefully the playoff push as well?
I think Kamara, a lot of, especially in the high stakes markets, these teams that'll draft, one front running back and try to load up on the wide receivers and cheat RB2. Kamara kind of fits really good because he's a pass catcher anyway. So even if you get him a little late, you miss 3 games, he's going to get 4 or 5 catches a game. He's going to get, double digit carries and score some rushing touchdowns. And even if they rotate in another back. So I think that even with him being a little bit older, I think the foundation skill set works. As far as Taylor is, we really don't know, does his ankle really hurt? Is it, more his heart hurts because he's not getting a contract, and this, I think yesterday there was a draft. He might have slid to like the 7th round. And then like at some point, I mean, you feel like you're getting a value, but at the same time, you could be giving away a pick. Right. So, but when you're trying to win these overall championships, at some point you have to swing for the upside, but it looks awfully messy with him. I'm not sure, my thoughts. Hopefully he's not in my plan tonight. I'm pretty much usually keep my head on straight on that kind of stuff. If I'm going to avoid him, such as last year, last baseball season or this year, DeGrom, I avoided him even when he was discounted in the auction, $20. I was like, if I don't believe in him, I don't believe in him. I just got to be off of him. I mean, and he ended up breaking down. So that was one thing I got right. Maybe not the ones maybe I didn't get the healthy players right, but I did avoid him. So there's a little bit of thoughts on the injury situations.
Miami, I was on A-Chain for most of the summer. He got nicked up. I haven't been on the Mozart or Wilson train. The news for Wilson missing the first month. Now everyone's flocking to Mozart. I have no shares. And my question to you is, my thought process is maybe getting A-Chain in a little lesser discount now. Hope the youth movement takes over mid to late there. Are you staying far away if Mozart falls to you this weekend on him? And thoughts on A-Chain moving forward?
I was on the phone call last night with my good friend Kimra Schleicher, and it was late in maybe the 10th round, and both of those running backs were on the table. So, A-Chain, it usually goes later, and we didn't know about his injury. And so I'm like, well, if you take Mostert, at this point, you could hook them both up. So, but before you get to her pick, somebody took A-Chain. So I'm like, well, they took him. So now you got to avoid the other running back completely from me, because I think Mostert is the player that has the most injury risk. Got a great season. He's a talented player. Think he's fine when he's on the field. I just don't trust the health factor. In fantasy, sometimes you just want a guy, maybe you have a Kamara or a Taylor. You just want a guy to get you out of the gate for 3 or 4 weeks, and he could work as that bridge player until A-Chain gets healthy. So I like the upside of A-Chain. Probably like him a little bit more 12th or 13th round. But it depends on the running back flow and your team structure. So, but Mostert, I probably would be a fade for me unless I was, if I was on a tight corner where I could swing them both, and I was out of position at running backs, the 4th and 5th running back, maybe I'll give it a shot. I mean, I think A-Chain looked pretty good in that game. Too bad he got body slammed or whatever he did and got picked up that shoulder injury, which just shows that, I don't think there's going to be many tackles like that, but he does have some injury risk as well, because he's a smaller guy.
People remember what they saw last. Najee Harris falling like the plague, and in comes Jaylen Warren. I've talked to you at length all along. I like where this Pittsburgh team's going. I like Kenny Pickett. I like his wide receivers. It's definitely a two-headed monster. I'm not comparing Najee Harris to Le'Veon Bell, but that's what he's basically there for. Now the emergence of Warren. Warren's in that 9th round now, and as soon as someone grabs Warren, usually the next pick or the pick after is Charbonnet from Seattle. Talk about Warren, talk about Charbonnet, and then further up with your thoughts on Najee Harris and Kenneth Walker.
Warren is obviously an interesting guy because he has a pass catching profile, and then in 2 seasons ago, Harris caught a ton of balls and he was kind of goal line back. But the problem with that offense is that really they need a little more explosive at the running back position, and their offensive line was kind of a problem. So I think Warren hitting on that 62-yard touchdown. He had another carry in the last preseason game that was like 6 or 7 yards, kind of walked in pretty easy. That's easy to draw attention to and see it on the field. But that doesn't mean that Harris, who was supposed to be like a Derrick Henry, a big guy that, would, break tackles and make plays. But when he's averaging, less than 4 yards a carry for his first 2 years in the NFL, the fantasy market and maybe Pittsburgh is looking for an upgrade at that position. So, but I still think that, Harris is going to be their guy. I think Warren's going to be in the mix. In the past, when they had Le'Veon Bell, it was pretty much, he was on the field a ton. They featured one running back. But this year, I think it's going to be a little more of, maybe 35, 65. And, maybe Harris loses more of the pass catching. He still will catch some, but I think he'll still be the favorite, especially in the short yardage situations at the goal line. As far as Seattle, Kenneth Walker is a pretty good player, and he played really well last year. His pass catching isn't ideal, and I guess there's some questions about his pass protection. And I think the Charbonnet guy, he looked like he could play on all 3 downs. Kind of a bigger guy. Doesn't look like he's going to be like explosive or shifty or whatever in the passing game, but he's going to be able to, catch some balls, move the chains, and I think be an upgrade for Seattle and add another dimension to that offense. So I know he gets, pretty good attention, especially some of the guys that are cheating the RB2 that, the long-term players. I've seen some of the name players. I won't mention any on the air, but they're gravitating towards him. He did have a little shoulder injury in the summer, so did that go away or what it was? And it was weird that it got cleared up, like suddenly it looked like he was going to miss some time and suddenly he's back. So, is that a factor? I don't know. So I think I have not kind of gravitated to the Seattle running backs. I thought Walker in the 5th round was high for me in the best ball stuff, and I'm not sure where he goes in Greg's, and then the shoulder issue kind of bothered me with the second back in Seattle. So those 2 situations are, kind of very interesting. And, and I can imagine one of the 2, the second running back on the team, might be the player that plays well at the end of the year.
Yeah, Walker went 7-9 in my last draft, and Charbonnet went 9-5. I know last year I was gifted on this weekend on the slide with Walker and Penny. I was able to double them up, and I was able to run with Walker till he got hurt and then run with Penny till he got work. So again, if you're coming out of the gates guns a-blazing, 3 wide, you get a quarterback maybe you even get your fourth wide or a tight end and putting your hat on, let's say, a Montgomery, a Rashid White. They're allowing you to get into the Seattle backfield. They're allowing you to get into Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson. So there are backfields that you can get into if you want to put, go 4 wide, get a quarterback, get a tight end, get then I'm all in on Montgomery. I got him at 7-12 the other day. And trust me, I'm not hunting Montgomery anymore. He's just at a spot, Shawn, where the value in my eyes is too big.
Yeah, I mean, he makes sense. Just in a little back of my head, though, last 2 years ago, he had a little knee issue, and I was like, man, wonder if that ever pops up, and Gibbs goes to the moon. But Montgomery, based on his overall, early down rushing, touchdowns. I mean, they scored a ton last year, and he's not dead in the water pass catching. And if Gibbs had an injury, he would be, really push higher up there. I think he really is going to be a good fit to that offense. Make some bigger plays and he has a much better offensive line. So pretty good, RB2 that you can trust and wheel out there every week, and, have some good games, but he'll be steady in others.
Shout out to Mr. Rooney and Mr. Sean Curl, a.k.a. Mr. Kitchen. Robert Rooney has a question again in the NFC and some of the drafts that you have. We don't have an IR spot now. A local draft or some of the smaller drafts might have an IR spot where you can grab someone, put them on your IR, and then still pick up another player. Mr. Rooney wanted to know a couple questions. Thoughts on Kyler Murray going to the PUP list? Does it devalue Hollywood Brown? My initial thought on Murray, I'm sticking with it. I've said it all summer. I don't think he plays it down this year. I think they're in full tank mode. I think they're going to run with who they got and then hopefully get into the Caleb Williams, Mr. May, and quarterback carousel with an early pick next year.
Yeah, I mean, do you think Arizona is going to tune out Murray with that Clayton Tune from Houston? He's going to come out of nowhere and be like a Brock Purdy and, kind of do some stuff. I mean, the stuff on Murray where he doesn't want to, do the work kind of I don't know if you saw the Johnny Manziel thing on Netflix, really didn't want to work too hard at the NFL market, and, watching film and doing all that stuff. And, Murray, kind of had that incentive in his contract, because they wanted him to watch it and stuff. So I think he's a talented player. I can't say that he's going to sit out. I mean, they're paying him an awful lot of money. What he signed last year for $230 million. So I think he's got to be motivated to back on the field. So I would think that he's going to miss 4 to 6 games at this point. Like you said, there's no rush to get him back, but he probably wants to get on the field. As far as Brown, I don't think he was really doing too much over the summer, and he was kind of a little banged up. They were showing a highlight of like him struggling to get it open against somebody, but I think just the dynamics of that offense is not too exciting in general. They will be behind, and I know some people are targeting Rondell Moore for that same reason, that because they're going to be forced to throw, but you still have to have, a pretty good offensive line and be able to move the chains to create opportunities for your receivers. So Brown, I'm not going to fight for. I think I pretty much just put him in the avoid column. I think that he goes in an area where there's 10 other receivers that are close to him, and probably 8 of them I would rather have. So he's one of those guys I'm going to let beat me. And, Murray in an IR spot, I mean, I'd still say there's 15 guys I'd probably rather have on my team. So unless you're playing like in a super flex league and you get an advantage that way, I probably wouldn't even chase him down. And, I guess you could hold him, but there might be other positions where there might be a better player, you could slide in there. Who says you don't get Jonathan Taylor at a discount or Kamara or something? You could tie it up in a different way, but interesting formats, when you use that IR stuff.
Yeah, the only guy that I've actually targeted, not even targeted, but he falls in the 16th, 17th, 18th round is the wide receiver, Michael Wilson. Yeah,
I'm not a Michael Wilson guy. I know that everybody likes him. I think he's a big guy and with size and plays Stanford. It makes sense, and everybody's looking for something out of Arizona. Just something about his route running and stuff like that. And I just read somewhere that his hands weren't that great, so the accuracy of the quarterback, obviously he fits because of the size. So I think that, if I can't get excited about the other two, I can't get too excited about him. So I do not own any shares of him in the best ball, and I did 350 teams of him. So, but they basically gave him to you in the last round too, and I didn't even take that shot, and I ended up getting beat at the quarterback 3 sometimes, and I took Murray because when he was discounted like 20 or 30 picks, I'm like, well, late in the year, he's a guy that could score 25 points. Where if you're taking some of the young quarterbacks or Ritter or even Mac Jones, Tannehill, I mean, Murray at least runs the ball and has some sort of floor there. So I do have some Murray there in that game, just because I got, just because of the inventory there.
So it's showtime. It's this week and next week in the NFFC. We get a free look on Thursday night. You'll be leaving for Vegas on Tuesday. What's the mindset for Mr. Childs for this weekend leading up to Tuesday and getting ready to go to Vegas?
I am desperately trying to get through this week 1 daily content for 2 reasons. One, I want to get a mental picture of what's going on, and I want to have everything out there, but I also am going to play the thing, and I cannot play once I leave on Tuesday. So I have done, I think, 9 game profiles, and so I've got a feel for what I think of some players on each team. I've done the early projections, which are just more of a baseline of projections to get everything set for this year, and then next week on Monday, I will update them, and that'll be the first step. But I still have to deal with the injury report when the stuff filters through on Tuesday to Friday, because we got a guy on a team that looks like he's questionable in August right now, and he might be out. We're not really getting good information. So if he sits, it changes things. If some running back gets scratched and doesn't play, there's kind of a value. I cannot take advantage of that stuff. So, basically you're just trying to get that stuff in order and, give people an opportunity to see how these teams look. And some of the information, even I'm writing for daily, it is helpful for the season long, because you got to be careful in the season long. You get this, this 10th round receiver you're really excited about, and you want to slide him in your lineup, but you don't need to take risks sometimes. You just want to put out your best players and hopefully those secondary players you can see how they're used in some offenses, and it probably more so in some of those running back situations. The Johnson guy from Chicago, like, will he get any chances? But you might get beat at RB2 on your team, and you might be thinking about him, but I would probably still sit him. So that's the question. So the daily content is early. So, but I am so way ahead of most people in that. I should be in pretty good shape, and I'll have that done. So that'll get all of it should be up on the site by Wednesday. I've pretty much got one more coming out this afternoon, and then one a day the next 5 days. And I've already done the one for Saturday. So 4 more to go, and kind of get my life back a little bit. But I did work hard for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, trying to get this done.
Shout out to Jim Christie. Says, see you guys in a few days. Always love to listen. And I gave him I drafted with Jim on Wednesday. I had the 9 spot. He had the 6 spot. And he sniped a few guys on me, but that's okay, Jim. Maybe we'll catch up this week.
One question. The rumor, there's one guy that Full-Time Fantasy, he's a big fan. In that middle of New York, they watch Syracuse a lot. So now I wonder if he stuck that Sean Tucker on his team. Did he get that player? Is that his guy? Is he going to beat out White?
No, there's no Sean Tucker. And actually, I was going to bring that up. I was going to actually bring that up and ask you, because he is gaining a lot of steam. I do. I think I know I like Rachaad White. I do. I don't have enough of him. He did get a little nicked up. Now you're getting the Matthew Berrys of the world and stuff talking about Sean Tucker. An easy cover where you can get White in around the 6th round, I think. Where did he go here? Rachaad White. He went 6-1 in this draft, and I don't even know where is Tucker, because that's my next lead in. I don't even know if Tucker got drafted here.
He tends to get drafted maybe 16 to 18 or something like that.
Yeah, somewhere late like that. And that's funny, because next Saturday we have the our first waiver wire. So you go back in some of your late July, early August drafts, and you say, what was I thinking? And then, here comes the Sean Tuckers. Here comes, you go in after a few of those guys. Let me see here. Sean, from Robert Rooney, love the content. Makes me think I know what I'm doing after reading his articles. Of course you do, Mr. Rooney. Of course you do. The chart that's down below. What's that?
One question. So what is the over-under for Tampa? I know Arizona's like 3.5. Is there a chance that Tampa could be worse than Arizona this year? I mean, that team could go sideways. No chance? Yeah, I don't know.
Tampa's worse than Arizona. Well, you know who's the dark horse here? And it's funny. I did a show yesterday. We did the AFC West, NFC West. Kind of reminds me they're kind of situated the same. You got, two real good teams, the 49ers in Seattle, and then you have Kansas City with the Chargers. But the Rams look in total disarray. And we started the show talking about Cooper Kupp. You got a quarterback there with Stafford that says he's struggling with the young kids. And, is it his neck? Is it his back? And you don't know with McVay what's going on. I think the LA Rams could fall into that category as well.
Yeah, they're. I was surprised that line. I mean, I know the lines was like 6 or something, and I'm not really, in the betting market. But when I did the projections, I had Geno, because I knew that I thought the Rams secondary was going to be young and have some problems this year out of the gate. A learning curve, and maybe Darnold can shorten the passing window in this matchup. But to help the coverage. But I had Geno. He's second in. Second quarterback rating, a big value for the daily game, but he also needs the Rams to score to fight. So 314 yards, his over-under and underdog was 243. I'm like over, when I think I'm over by 20%, I mean, that's pretty good play. I mean, if you're over by 10%, 50%, I'm giving the best outcomes possible, most likely, where the lines, when you're giving the betting lines, they're more, kind of on average, and they're going to win some, lose some. They just don't want to be, totally out of line. So, I kind of get it. But when something like Geno, he stands out to me as a really good play. I would obviously like to, see Najigba in the lineup too, Smith and Najigba, but you've already told me he's no chance that he's playing. So I have to go with that, right? That's reported from East Coast Sports Investors 3 days ago. I don't know if you saw it on, Roto World, Roto Wire, or East Coast Wire, but he would be helpful if he did play, just to give him another option. But, but they'll also run the ball. So I don't know. Interesting for that matchup. I mean, it seems like Seattle should win that game.
Yeah, and there's, we talk about the survivor pools and wherever you're playing them locally, or if you go out to Vegas and the Circa, and there's 3 train wrecks. Which one will it be? Arizona at Washington, the Rams at Seattle, both around 6-point favorites. And then, of course, the Ravens at 10-point or 9.5-point favorites against the Texans. And usually week 1, there's one train wreck there. And listen, no disrespect to Njigba. The fact he was out there practicing, he was out there catching balls. He does have a cast on the left hand. I haven't got him since the injury. I was really in on him, and he hasn't really slid that much. I did move Lockett up a tad, and I didn't have enough of Lockett. I did get him this past week, and I did give Metcalf a jump too, because my Banky Judy got hurt there. So are you giving Metcalf or Lockett a little bump just because the Njigba injury?
I didn't change it a lot. I mean, they were already rated pretty good. I mean, I guess I had come to the conclusion that I was going to take Najigba over Lockett. I just was going to go for the young guy there, and that happened like the next day. I had the conversation with Kimra. So, but I would like to see him, if he could, even if he slides a half a round or 8 picks, he kind of might fit in the plan better, because just depending on the draft spot. So he just looks really intriguing. Something about the guy. Obviously he's got to stay healthy. He missed a lot of time last year, and he's already got the hand issue. But, as far as getting open and doing stuff with the ball, he's pretty impressive. But Metcalf, I thought he's a guy that could be a top 12 receiver and push really higher up there. Lockett, a little bit older, like what he does. Had to discount him, but at age 31, if you got to, fade somebody, I mean, let's fade the senior citizen, that's close to Social Security, right?
Well, and I'll tell you the other thing that really scared me about Njigba is the fact that Seattle's got bye week 5, and this is how I broke it down. He's out week 1. He's getting ready. He's making the right strides in week 2. The goal is to get him ready for week 3. Well, if as a la Cup, if there's any setback or the way the bone or something's healing, they could just say, hey, there was a minor setback. We're not going to rush him back. He'll miss, week 4, and we'll give him the bye week to get ready. So he's not in your starting lineup to week 6. And I know, listen, I'm looking real far, and I'm rooting for him to play because I do have him in a lot of spots. But in the back of my mind, that's still a small possibility.
Yeah, I think that would be more so for me if I thought it was like a fracture in his wrist or something like that. But I think it was a really small bone, and I don't even know if that cast. I'm sure it's not, a full blown out. Like it looks like it's more on the softer side, and maybe he has a brace underneath it to limit the movement. So, he did bobble one catch in, over the middle, and when in the NFL, when you bobble a little bit over the middle and you get hit, those ends up being an interception. So, let's see how he reacts, and we'll see how the news comes out this week. But we'll see. I don't see. The NFL is too short of a season to sit out good players, and Seattle needs to win games to make the playoffs. So you don't want to be giving away any games like in the first month of the season if somebody could help you win.
One player before we go to your cheat sheet down below. The so-called experts, everyone on social media has already implanted this rookie into the veteran that has now been traded. He's going to move right in, and he's going to take all these stats. And I'm talking about Jordan Addison. And here I was able to get him as our 4. We started Lamb, Olave. We gave Scott a bone, and we got his Deebo Samuel with Trevor Lawrence. Came back with Javonte Williams and David Montgomery. And then we grabbed Addison as our 4. Give us your thoughts on Addison for the regular season. Thoughts. Does he move right into Thielen? Expectations of Jordan Addison, wide receiver from USC, now on Minnesota.
Yeah, he he got a little roughed up in the car thing earlier in the summer, and he kind of pumped the brakes on whatever thinking about him. Figure young and immature a little bit, but he that team threw the ball off a lot last year, and he just he upgrades the explosiveness of the the wide receiver 2 position over Thielen. Thielen, good route runner, good hands, but last year kind of worked close to the line of scrimmage. He'll make some plays, but this guy can make some plays and then gain some yards after the catch. He can go deep. He can do a lot of stuff. Now he's gonna you got Jefferson on the other side commands so much attention. Now he's going to see weaker coverage probably than even when he did in college. So he's going to have some more opportunities to make bigger plays. Hawkinson kind of worked as, the guy close to the line of scrimmage, and, short yards per catch with Minnesota around 8.6. So you add a more explosive player, and if he starts to hit the ground running, he's going to shave into the tight end positions targets a little bit, and they still have Osborne. So I think Cousins had 424 completions last year. That's a lot, right? And you say you get 120 to the lead receiver, that still leaves 300 for a lot of guys. There's a lot of catches there, and they don't throw a ton of balls to the running back. Maybe the 60, maybe the 70, but there's still enough to satisfy Addison and even Osborne to get 60 catches in the tight end. So it's a pretty attractive situation, and I think he really makes the Vikings offense a lot better overall because now they're a little more explosive. Cousins can go back. He might, he was pretty good before, 8 yards per pass attempt. And last year it was closer to 7.4. So I think he's going to pass for over 5,000 yards, be a top 3 quarterback. And Addison's going to be a really attractive play. Might be a little up and down in games, but he's going to have, those games where he gains 100 yards, and the Vikings defense will give up points. So they'll have to throw even more and score even more. So very interesting player. Kind of goes in nobody kind of fights for him and pushes him up in drafts, but he goes in a fair spot. So as far as if I had a choice between Brown from Arizona and him, I'm going with the Vikings. I'm going to go with a team that's going to throw the ball a lot with a much more proven offense.
Addison or Gabe Davis?
I would take Addison. I don't know if, I mean, I should. I think Davis kind of, disappointed last year. I think he, they could say he had the ankle thing, but he has the size and he can make some big plays and maybe he could get 10 touchdowns, but I'm not sure he's going to be that 70, 80 catch guy that we all envisioned. And it's possible. And they added the tight end in Buffalo, that they seem to like. And, it's an interesting situation, but I think Gabe Davis works better as a wide receiver 4, where I think, Addison could be a wide receiver 3. But not that I'm going to avoid Davis. If he's priced in the right slot, I think he's fair and he's in the right offense. But I just, I got him in one RT Sports draft in the 9th round as the 5th receiver, which is a pretty good deal, because there's no risk. There's upside if he plays well, and those are the different formats. You get different values.
All right, let's do this, Mr. Childs.
All right.
I'm going to go here. There you go, sir.
Yeah, so, Jeff brought up this is the DraftKings projections for week 1. And like I said, it's a rough take, the first thing. And when I do the projections, and I'll slide it for you, you can see that if they're on the site or anybody has them, DraftKings color and their background's kind of orange. So I do highlight them in different colors. So FanDuel's just to the left of it, and it's in green. So even for the high stakes market, I can go more left. They all have usually a color base. So when that you're looking at some projections, you kind of know you're looking at the right one. You don't want to be looking at FanDuel projections for DraftKings, because one's a PPR and DraftKings has a 3-point bonus, which translates well in the projections, but in the season long, I can't really add in that 3-point bonus. But in this particular week, in week 1, Mahomes and Geno Smith are the only ones projected to pass for 300 yards, so they get the extra 3 points. But I think the most important factor for me when identifying players, there's going to be a bunch of, high-priced players and lower-priced players, but you're always looking for that fantasy points per 1,000, which means how many fantasy points can I get per $1,000 invested? So DraftKings has $50,000 and FanDuel has $60,000. To win a like the $1 Million Maker or Grand Prize, the big pool, you really need players that are going to get 4 times their salary to pay off. But most of the time, the players aren't going to be projected to do that. But when you see these, the winners from week to week, the target number is 235 points. If you have 235 points, you have a pretty good week. But if there's a week that, some players score 3 touchdowns and some 4, this can get to 260, 280 or 290. And it also depends on, the players doing it. Can they fit into the puzzle? If all the top running backs go off, you only can probably have one of them, and top receivers, you only can get, 1 or 2 of them. So you're kind of looking for a couple impact players. So what you're looking for, so in the Geno, like I said, for me, because of the Rams secondary, I thought they had concern. Geno's rating is, for me, giving, more risk to the Rams defense out of the gate when I did the first outlooks and all the research early in the season. So, his price salary is $6,100. He was supposed to have 3 good receivers. I don't remember what I rated into Jigber in this particular case in week 1. Like I said, it was still early, but I obviously knew he had the injury. But I thought, Metcalf, big play and stuff. So, I got him down for 3 touchdowns, 300 yards, but his number is 4.84, which makes that a really, really strong play and one you want to kind of pay attention to. And if we slide down a little bit on the lower tier, Sam Howell, he's 4,900 and he's almost 4. But this could be a case that I did this before McLaurin's had the toe issue. So, that projection could be a lower. So a lot of the quarterbacks at DraftKings are going to be around 3, because most quarterbacks, passing quarterbacks, they can pass for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. You need they get a little bit of rushing yards, and the rushing yards are worth a lot more over this 4 pound. I think it's 0.4 for each passing yard, and you get 1/10 of a point for rushing yards. So rushing yards are 2.5 times in both FanDuel and DraftKings. So that's why Fields and Lamar and stuff like that, if they can run the ball, 100 yards rushing is really worth a lot more compared to 100 yards passing. So it's so you're looking at that. And so you kind of get a ballpark of what the baseline is, and then that gives you, 2 or 3 targets that you're thinking about. And at the same time, when you're building these daily lineups, even though like a McCaffrey or a Jefferson can't get to maybe 4 times their salary, or they would really need a special game, having $30 players in the slot does create a separation, because even if you have a bunch of guys that are kind of could get 20, you might not be able to get that impact score at some positions and get to those dynamic numbers to win these things. So there's always that trade-off. Do I want 3 30-point players, or do I want all a bunch of 20s and kind of not chase the back end guys and looking for the the 15s or 12s at the tight end position? So when we I'll slide down to running backs, same thing. They have the the fantasy points per 1,000. If it says like NA, most likely it is. I don't pull the salaries from the Thursday and Monday game, because those are usually they use those for the what are those the captain mode thing. So their salaries are a little bit different. And I guess I should probably pull that for those games, and I could kind of dump those. So if people are playing that for the DFS, but it always shows as not available or whatever for this. And other reason they might show is if I didn't match the name, but it's a pretty good test for me to make sure I got all the names matched up when I'm doing it. So that'll be helpful when I'm writing this DFS content too, because I can see this stuff. But anyways, right, the only one that's really has a 3 rating is that I rate at the top for running back, Gibson. And that's more probably because he's a pass catcher. Arizona's supposed to be a pretty bad team. And, it's just, so you're just looking for favorable situations. Some weeks, a couple players will stand out. Some weeks a stack will stand out. And then, hopefully you can identify, enough key pieces that you can just add those other players in to kind of have a decent lineup. So kind of talked a lot there. What, any questions or thoughts or?
Well, my quick question is, and you see I'm smiling because I'm grabbing Gibson just regular season every which way but loose, because I like Sam Howell. My infatuation with Dotson and Gibby as the pass catching back. I know Brian Robinson's there. I know he's going to be the lead back, but Gibson in the pass catching role, kind of I enjoy where he's going. I think I got him at the end of the 8th. I kind of jumped him there. I could have waited to the 9th, but there was a running back run going on. So my question is just what you said in the last 10 minutes, a Geno Lockett, DK, and then would you use a Gibson as one of your backs? This is just throwing darts against the wall.
Yeah, and if let's say in this particular Seattle was the game and we're going to go for it, right? And we need, when you're doing the daily game, you need follow through. And a lot of times these players get off to good starts and they can, catch a bomb early and 6 for 70 out of the gate, but they need that other team to score to get follow through and reach these winnable numbers. So if Kupp was healthy, like you could have that Geno with Metcalf and put Kupp on the other side. So now when you do that, you're limited. Can you fit that extra receiver from Seattle in? If Najigba was playing and his salary was cheaper, can you get that? So, you could possibly have 2 hookups. At the same time, if Walker was a little more of a pass catcher, maybe the running back, because if this was the Chargers, Eckler or stuff like, so you're looking for, some way to get another player to the piece. I don't think necessarily you have to force it in there if it doesn't make sense. Because, a lot of this is, especially filling out the rosters, kind of, salary driven and opportunity driven. But there will be people that will just go to that game and they'll stack 5 guys in one team and hopefully put the other pieces, and they hope that game's 42-38, so, and you never know the first week of the season in NFL, even, like Pittsburgh, San Francisco, like, oh, that looked like a little, I like a lot of offensive players, young guy, but San Francisco's got a top defense. So that'll be against the grain, but you might be able to fit a lot of those players in doing that. And if they do go off, you could have a lower percentage owned. So, But Gibson is, he would, in that $5,000 range. And the other thing is, especially at DraftKings, the floor of the running back is $4,000. So if you use a $4,000 player, they have to get 4 times their salary, like 16 points. So not many of them are going to do it. So you don't have like the wide receivers. You might find a $3,000 receiver that could get 25 points once in a while. Who's the rookie that's from on Green Bay? Because I just did Green Bay this morning. Reed,
Jaden Reed.
Yeah. So if Dobbs doesn't play and Jaden Reed's $3,000 in that Bear game, Packer games goes back and forth, Love's reasonable and Christian Watson's pretty explosive, you could probably put Reed in there pretty good and get, somebody on the other side of the Bears. I mean, you potentially could get, a guy that could get 7 times his salary. So you're going to get in DraftKings a better opportunity to get a value at wide receiver. But the further you go down on the food chain at any of these positions, you also take more risk of getting, these bust scores as well. So there's a fine line, and it probably works better if the stack goes off. Like last year when I had that big win, I had the player that Fields was obviously the difference maker, and I had Mixon, that had 55 points. But the player that kind of got me to the finish line and over the top was Cole Kmet, because he was only like a 1.25% own. And I used him because I used the quarterback, and I had him in Mooney in that hookup, and Mooney, scored a touchdown. It was okay game, but the quarterback played great. The tight end got 2 touchdowns. So, it's just it's an interesting thing, and it's hard to handicap this stuff during the season. I mean, you just look at it when you're if you're making a pick for bets, it's hard enough to get the game right. Never mind the intricate whatever of the players in the game. This can't even say it right, but so
scroll down to the wide receivers for a sec.
So the wide receivers, Justin Jefferson, 27, Chase 26, pretty attractive players, but they'll get 3 times their salary if they hit on a second touchdown. Both of them are projected for over 100 yards, pretty good there. The other side of the Cleveland game looks pretty good as far as values and stuff. I like that game. The 3 games I've kind of like players right now I've done. There's, I think the Saints Tennessee game's intriguing because I like 3 receivers on Tennessee's. And I think if Michael Thomas, Olave, and the Johnson tight end, Juwan Johnson, that combination could do something. And I'm really in that the A.T. Perry guy, if he's the wide receiver 3, he's like a big play guy, that he's kind of sneaky too. I wouldn't really want to kind of gravitate to play him in anything other than a $5 flyer to win $1 million, like that type thing. Just let me just throw him on a team. But that game has enough of players that kind of mix in. The Cincinnati-Cleveland game makes sense. I mean, you can don't love the Bears and Green Bay, but because I know people are going to gravitate to Love and Christian Watson. It's going to be a higher percentage own, and I like the Seattle side, which I haven't got to. And there's some throwaway games. I mean, Washington, maybe the backs, maybe Dotson, but overall, is Arizona going to score enough? I mean, I like the Washington defense. For that reason, they were top defense and stuff like that. And but the defense is sometimes hard because if they're rated high, like that kind of matchup, would you rather pay an extra $1,000 to get a defense in there? And if they only get you 10 points, you can go up a whole level at wide receiver or running back or your second running back. So.
You brought up something that used to be the rule and the law, and that's the pushback theory. So in other words, if you were stacking Seattle this week with Geno, Metcalf, and Lockett, you have a hard time going to the Rams. You want something because you need that flow to go back and forth. We know the Cup injury. You got Cam Akers there. Does Van Jefferson get the bump? Is maybe even a Higbee in play? If you're in on Seattle, do you identify one Ram guy to throw in there hoping to hit, or do you just now with the Cup injury, do you move off and head in another direction?
I think Chris Schenker, who does I do some stuff with, and he leans more to do that. I think that I look for it, but I don't force it. The thing that probably stands out when you're doing that, if we're going a particular Sunday, and say this week there's one game with an over under of 50. If that one game goes off, and the other games are in the 20s and whatever, and there's only one high scoring game, and those players kind of fit and make sense, you're going to kind of create an edge. But if there's 3 or 4 games that are 35-31, 38-35, there's a lot of pieces and a lot more outs. So even though you're trying to kind of correlate and put them together, sometimes the other offenses and it fits better. And that ultimately I'm kind of doing it from we come from like a dog track handicapping background. When we're doing this, we're trying to handicap the field, and we're going to get it right. I mean, for me, for that day that I had last year, that might not happen for 10 more years. If I had more money and I could put in, 5 times as much as my chances might increase, but I also increase my chance of losses, right? So, you got to kind of play within your bankroll. And, I think this is somewhat of a consistency factor. Like last year, like if you just played Fields every week, knowing that eventually he'd be explosive, that he might come in, right? You just could play him every week. But when you write an article, like a perfect lineup for something like for, Sports Illustrated I was doing, can I write Fields every week? Well, this guy writing the same damn thing every damn week, but you got to, I know I lost in September because I had some Fields and I end up winning. But in this year, there's a couple quarterbacks. Let me go up there 1 second. Like, I think that, and it doesn't, and Hurts is going to come in multiple times, but I can't be attracted to the top end thing. I guess in the back of my head, I think that the Saints structure is kind of intriguing because it's not going to be very attractive. You know what I mean? You're not a Olave guy, and I think Mike Thomas does something, and we'll know that in week 1. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he is helpful, and maybe they play better at home. But so at some point, which one of these quarterbacks or a couple players can you hit your pony to over the year, and they come in, because Steve Japinker is a good friend of mine, one of the best interpreters of information in the high stakes market, I think, that that I've met, and I'm sure there's others, but he really thought that trying to win the $1 Million Maker was like a dream, like it was never going to happen. And I'm like, it's really not as hard as you think. You need the quarterback to come in, right? So you need 2 of his receivers, and you realistically, whatever their salary is, if their salary is, 20,000, you need 80 points. If they're 25,000, you need 100. And then you said, like, you get the player on the other side. Now we can rotate, we can hitch one running back some weeks we can like, and we can kind of, stick him in, but then we could rotate 4 or 5 backs to kind of, maybe hit on those. We could rotate 3 defenses. We could rotate a tight end. Maybe the tight end hooks up, maybe not. And then the last slot is filling the last wide receiver spot or the last flex spot. And it's more of a filler. So there's really like 6 components to a lineup, and you can get half of it right a lot because you might get the stack right. But then you got to get the whatever the complementary running back that you lean on, and then you got to get the defense, and because you really got to hit to win. The overall. If it's a smaller event, you could obviously have miss on 1.5. So like I said, it's viable, and I don't care if there's 1,000 or 2,000 people in it, or compared to 300,000 for the $1 Million Maker. It's just it's still a number game, and there's a lot of overlap. But so yeah, I don't know. So it's it's something I would like to say in my lifetime I could win the $1 Million Maker one time. I think our best chance was a few years ago. We won 20 grand on the opening weekend, and we were winning 100. I think if Atlanta was playing Philadelphia, if they would have got a first down or something and like slowed down the clock or something, we would have won 100,000, and we would have been, say, we've finished like 10th in the $1 Million Maker or something like that. But they got the first down and something happened, or I don't know what happened. Then Philly got the ball and a couple players end up making plays, but that was like 7 or 8 years ago. But there's been some shots, but the goal is to put your chips in and stay alive and not lose your bankroll, but hang around to maybe get paid someday.
Where our goal, I know you'll be in Vegas next week. Our goal is to stay consistent, if possible. Next week is a flyer week, obviously. The game on Thursday night, Detroit, Kansas City, drafting on the weekends. And then, of course, we start on Sunday. If we do have a show on Friday, maybe we will have that quote-unquote perfect lineup where you can walk through, your updated projections and this, so everyone can get out there and at least see what the perfect lineup is. And then, obviously, you'll have some pivot points on each position there. But as we wrap up here, Shawn, obviously I want to thank Jim Christie, Mr. Rooney, Sean Kroll, everyone else watching, everyone traveling to New York, Vegas this weekend, next weekend, safe travels. Best of luck drafting. But Shawn, as we always do here, closing, I always turn to the co-host or guest and like to say some closing thoughts, whether it's some thought processes in drafting this weekend or anything that might be able to help the viewers and people watching.
Yeah, I said, ultimately, we're put a lot of research into football, and we're basically betting our opinions, and we need the players to stay healthy and cooperate, and that's the trick of any fantasy sports. And as you in 2017, the stars align for you. Will it align this year? Do we have the Todd Gurley and the DeAndre Hopkins and Kamara? What's the three? Because it's really 3 or 4 players that you really kind of have those other breakout years, and then you can kind of mix it up a little bit and maybe hit on the different quarterbacks. You won that year with Bortles late. I had Roethlisberger. Bortles was the best quarterback the last 3 weeks, but Roethlisberger was second best. So like I said, I transitioned to the daily game. I'm writing the stuff at, fantasyanalyst.substack.com, at Twitter, at Shawn Childs, Shawn _Childs at Twitter, or is it X or whatever it is, but, so we're just going to grind our way through the football season, and we'll have to get some baseball content going because it's a harder ride from, the end of football season to the beginning of baseball, because that's slave labor for 6 or 7 weeks prepping for that sport, but that's what we're up against. And hopefully we can drive this content home, and maybe even some people follow us and we make some progress where, we can keep on doing this.
Mr. Rooney says, great information as always. He'll see you on the Tee Box in the AM tomorrow. So, after 3 drafts, Robert, you might want to press tomorrow, Robert. If there was the $5 Nassau's, you might want to make it 10. Mr. Childs could be a little frazzled by the time you guys get to the Tee Box. So just remember to tip the dealer when Shawn's everywhere tomorrow and you're hitting him straight down the middle. So we'll see what happens there. So everyone, again, thank you so much. Our goal is to be back next Friday at 1:00. Could be subject to change. Obviously, we'll see what Shawn has a late draft Thursday night after the Kansas City Detroit game. So he will be 3 hours also behind us, but we'll work with Shawn and his schedule to get that perfect lineup up and get everyone ready for opening week 1. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at DC Sports Invest, from the Hall of Famer himself, Mr. Shawn Childs at Shawn _Childs. Go check out his work, obviously, at fantasyanalysis.substack.com. You can find his work also at Full Time Fantasy. 3:00, the NCAA Football Insiders, Q and Mr. Matt Grissom, join us at 3:00. We're going to talk some college football. And at 5:00, Ron from Ace Sports is back with us to break down week 1 in college sports. Quick shout out to Anthony Pepe and Sports Map Radio for Thursday night show. It was an amazing show. All our guests were phenomenal. I'll be circled back in the wagon for next Thursday's show there too as well. So everyone have a great day, and we will see you soon.